In 40 AD, 200,000 Roman soldiers, the most lethal fighting force on the planet, stood in full battle formation on a beach in northern Gaul. Siege weapons aimed at the water, shields locked, spears raised, and then, on their emperor's order, they stabbed the ocean. This actually happened. And somehow, it gets weirder. When it was over, the emperor declared victory over Neptune, god of the sea. He ordered his men to fill their helmets with seashells, the official spoils of war. Then he marched them home and held a triumph in Rome. The Senate applauded. Nobody laughed out loud. Picture what you're actually looking at. These aren't border guards or a scouting party. This is a full imperial invasion force. Catapults. Supply chains stretching hundreds of miles back through Gaul. Veterans who had bled through campaigns in Germania, North Africa, the Middle East. Men who had watched cities burn. These are soldiers who conquered around 7 million square miles of territory. They had beaten back armies, crossed the Alps, subdued entire civilizations, and now they are standing on a beach in formation, facing water, waiting for orders. The English Channel is 21 miles wide at its narrowest. On a clear day, you can see Britain from Gaul. The invasion target is right there. The legions are ready. The ships are ready. Everything is in place. And then, something happened. So how does the most disciplined military force in human history end up being ordered to fight the ocean? To answer that, you need to understand exactly who gave that order. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. Everyone called him Caligula. Little Boot. He got the nickname as a toddler. His father was a general, and soldiers thought it was adorable, this tiny kid wandering camp in a miniature legionnaire's uniform. The army loved him. Rome loved him. When he became emperor at 24, after years under the paranoid, murderous reign of Tiberius, people wept in the streets with joy. Then, something snapped. Within a year, the beloved young emperor was executing people on a whim, appointing his horse as a consul, demanding a golden statue of himself placed in Jerusalem's holiest temple. Ancient sources describe senators being publicly humiliated. Random citizens executed for laughing at the wrong moment. People weren't just confused by Caligula, they were terrified. This wasn't eccentric behavior you rolled your eyes at. This was unpredictable, targeted, lethal. You didn't know if you'd leave a dinner party the same way you arrived. That kind of fear changes how everyone around you behaves. Remember that. It matters later. But historians have spent 2,000 years arguing about whether Caligula was actually insane, or whether something else entirely was going on. Because the beach incident? It might not mean what you think it means. What if the joke was never on Neptune? The original plan was real and serious. Julius Caesar had poked at Britain twice 55 BC and 54 BC and 54 BC and pulled back both times. No emperor had finished the job. Caligula intended to. He assembled between 200,000 and 250,000 soldiers, marched them north through Gaul over weeks, and staged the full logistical apparatus of an invasion. The legions reached the Channel coast. Everything pointed to a crossing. The fleet was actually built. Real ships, real timber, real labor. This wasn't a bluff. Someone genuinely intended to put a Roman army on British soil. And then the order never came. Instead, Caligula addressed the troops, pointed at the ocean, and declared war on Neptune. The men were ordered into battle formation facing the water. They hurled javelins at the waves. Then, and this is the part Roman historians recorded with barely concealed horror, he told them to collect seashells. Soldiers filled their helmets, their armor, their hands. He called the shells spoils of the ocean owed to the capital and the palace. He had a massive lighthouse, the Pharos of Boulogne, constructed on the spot as a monument to his victory. Then he marched his army of 200,000 men, laden with seashells, back toward Rome. The Roman historians who recorded this were horrified, but almost no modern historian believes the story happened exactly as written. Here's the problem. We don't have Caligula's version of any of this. His records, his official accounts, his own writings, gone. After his assassination in 41 AD, the Senate ordered a damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory. His name was chiseled off monuments, his statues smashed, his documents burned. Everything we think we know about Caligula comes from two main sources: Suetonius, writing 80 years after his death, and Cassius Dio, writing 150 years after. Both drew on accounts from men who had every political reason to paint the dead emperor as a monster. We're not reading history here, we're reading the winner's propaganda. Think about that. If your only sources about a leader were written by people who needed that leader to seem insane to justify killing him, how much would you trust them? The seashell story is almost perfectly shaped. It's too absurd, too humiliating, too complete. Real events are messy. This reads like a punchline someone polished for a century, so modern historians have landed on three competing theories. Theory 1. Caligula was genuinely mentally ill. He suffered a severe illness in 37 AD, just months into his reign. That ancient sources say changed his personality overnight. Possibilities range from encephalitis to hypothyroidism to poisoning. Under this theory, the seashell order was literal. The man had lost his grip. Theory 2 is darker. The legions nearly mutinied. Roman soldiers genuinely believed the ocean was the edge of the world. Crossing it meant entering the realm of the gods, where mortals didn't belong. When Caligula gave the order to board ships, significant numbers of soldiers refused. The seashell ceremony wasn't madness, it was punishment. Public, deliberate humiliation for cowardice. Theory 3 pulls the rug out entirely. The Latin word recorded in some ancient texts, musculus, can mean seashell. It can also mean a type of military siege equipment. Some scholars argue the soldiers were ordered to gather musculi, military gear, and the seashell story is a mistranslation or deliberate mockery added later by hostile writers. Same word, completely different event. Three theories. Three completely different Caligulas. One was a madman. One was a tactician who punished his own army with precision and cruelty. One is a victim of bad translation and worse historians. You're now actively picking a side in a debate that has lasted 2,000 years. But there's a fourth angle. None of these fully accounts for. It involves the one thing every Roman emperor feared more than barbarians, more than plagues, more than the gods themselves, his own legitimacy. A Roman emperor without a military triumph wasn't just unprestigious. He was vulnerable. The army respected victories. The Senate respected victories. The mob respected victories. Without Britain, Caligula came home empty-handed. A triumph was a specific, formal ritual, a parade through Rome displaying war spoils, prisoners, and conquered wealth. It was the ultimate political performance, and Caligula needed one desperately. His reign was already shaky. Plots were forming. The seashells, whatever they literally were, gave him something to carry through Rome's streets. Spoils. Victory. Proof. Roman emperors weren't just rulers, they were performers. The audience was the Senate, the legions, and a city of 1 million people who wanted bread and spectacle. The beach might have been theatre all along. Was Caligula crazy, or was he playing a game the rest of Rome was too proud to admit they all played? Is the most mind-bending part of this entire story. It worked. Caligula returned to Rome with his seashells, staged his triumph, and the Senate, men who had attended genuine triumphs, who knew exactly what a real military victory looked like, formally praised his campaign. They voted him honest. They applauded. Every man in that room understood it was absurd. Every single one. And every single one played along anyway, because the alternative, standing up and saying these are seashells, the ocean was not conquered, was more dangerous than pretending. The shells weren't proof of madness. They were proof that power doesn't need to be real. It only needs to be performed convincingly enough that everyone agrees not to laugh. Go back to that beach. 200,000 soldiers in full battle formation, stabbing waves with their spears. You saw it as the punchline of a mad emperor's joke. Look at it again. What you're actually watching is power in its purest form. The moment when everyone knows the story is fiction, and everyone tells it anyway. The seashells went on display in Rome. The Senate cheered. The crowd roared. Caligula was murdered 8 months later by his own guards, not because of the ocean, but because he made too many specific enemies with too much to lose. The beach was never the problem. Every system of authority, ancient or modern, runs partly on the shared agreement not to question the seashells.